Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Missing Frames. This is the podcast where we watch all the movies we should have seen by this point in our lives. I am thrilled beyond all reason today to have one of my dear friends, Tricia Aurand, on the show as my co-host. Tricia, welcome to the show.
Hi, Shawn. How's it going?
Oh, I am just... Thank you for asking me how's it going as if we haven't been talking for the past 30 minutes.
No.
Catching up on old times. Because here's the thing, audience. Tricia and I have known each other forever.
I mean, it's really got to be 22 years, I think, is the count.
That sounds about right. I
Yep.
think I was 12. And I say I when really I should say we, because one of the things that bonded us early on, we've gone to school together. We've known each other since middle school, I want to say.
Yeah,
but the true thing that bonded us was we were both born on the exact same day.
Yep.
This
In the
is
same year. That's the important part.
same year. Yeah, that's the crazy part. Same day, same year. We were born on Thanksgiving. So we share this significant bond that has bonded us through space and time. And I think it's a beautiful thing. But people, I know you're like, I don't want to listen to this reunion, but you're going to have to deal with it. We are going to be talking about a movie. That movie is AI, Artificial Intelligence, which Tricia has never seen. It's something she's never seen. I've seen it. It's been a long time. And that's what this whole episode's about. I want to hear how we became friends, because this is, I think, will enrich the film experience. If we can find a way to tie this into AI at the end of this episode, I will be thrilled.
Sure, definitely. My mom was a teacher, so I ended up having to stay after school every day. And you also had to stay after school. And I don't even know how it started, but we managed to get ourselves into some kind of war.
Yeah.
I think like you guys had built a fort and me and some of my friends decided to destroy it or the other way around.
As long as we got that on tape, though. Okay. I want to make sure that's clear that I was just minding my own business.
So we started some kind of war, and probably just like a prank war. I think water got thrown around, and I don't know, but we managed at some point. I think I was like, "Listen, this has got to stop, everybody." And so me and my 7th grade brain, or whatever it was, drew up like an actual treaty document. And then we all signed it and agreed not to be in a war anymore. And very important for our treaty, it also forged an alliance, because we realized that there were other outside forces we might have to be grappling with.
Exactly.
And so then we resolved to fight together against whoever that might have been. And
we've been friends ever since. And I think this all comes back to friendship, which is a strong theme in Steven Spielberg's AI, Artificial Intelligence. I don't think it is, but I wanted to try to segue. That was terrible. We'll try to do better later.
Great.
But so you moved. So we went to school together up until I think my freshman year of high school, your sophomore year, and then you went off and started doing your own thing, and you've ended up in LA just being a total BAMF. And you're not only writing and directing plays and teaching and doing awesome stuff, you're also doing lessons from a Screenplay, this amazing video channel on YouTube that Michael Tucker created. And how did you get involved in this? Because it's so cool.
Yeah. Okay. So Michael is a friend of mine, and he'd been running the channel by himself essentially for 2.5 years, full time, pretty much since it launched, as he was lucky enough to have some success right when it got started. And last year in mid 2018, he and I reconnected, and we were talking about screenwriting, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to write a video for the channel?" And I was a fan of the channel, but not super familiar with like video essay form. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of like, sure, let's just give it a shot. And he was like, well, what would you want to write about? And I pitched him this idea about Jurassic Park. Obviously, massive Spielberg
that was
fan
the first
over
one
here.
you'd written?
Yeah. So
it's amazing.
the Jurassic Park video, I wrote that one, and then I don't know, it was just so much fun and such a dream to get to work on something. I write a lot of full-length feature screenplays, and it's so, you often feel like you're writing in a vacuum because even if your film gets made, it's years and years and years in the future. You get rewritten 1,000 times. You get to feel like, how could anything that I write ever actually get made? And then writing in short form, especially in video essay form for somebody like Michael and the channel, it's just so rewarding because everything that you get is just so like immediate, or like as immediate as it sort of can be in film and film production. And also just like getting to nerd out about movies that I love is
exactly. And it's a lot of, I think, the fact that you have something you're working towards, where a lot of times when you're writing creatively on your own or like working on a script, it's like, I don't know where this is going. I kind of what is this? But with this you have like a defined goal and a defined like, we need to have it done by this point, which helps so much. But I'm sure as a screenwriter it must be so much fun to hang out with screenwriters and just break down the plots of these movies, character arcs. It's such I'm sure anyone who's listening to this episode already knows about the channel, but if you don't, you should absolutely check it out, and check out the new podcast that this team just started. Beyond the Screenplay, right?
Yeah. So back in early this year, we launched officially our podcast that also is sort of like a companion to the channel. And I get to talk on the podcast with the guys, the other members of the team, and they're obviously super smart and just really fun to talk to. And so, yeah, it's been quite a ride already with the podcast. It's been really thrilling, and getting to, we basically have to, for the channel, really focus our topics and focus the conversation around the screenplay of a movie and try to distill it down into like one lesson. And so the podcast was sort of designed as a way for us to like get into all of the other amazing things about these movies that we love so much, and get to just gab about why, like where this movie came from, how did it get made, and how do like all of these things that are now iconic, how did they come to be? And so that in itself has already just been a trip and a dream, getting to be a part of that.
And it's wonderful. So everybody check it out. And let's now this is going to be a great segue, because you mentioned Jurassic Park, and we're talking about artificial intelligence. So Steven Spielberg, this is a movie that he directed, and this was right after Saving Private Ryan. So he's kind of like hit a new peak of like, he's now...
Well, Schindler's List was 93. And that was very, very well received, obviously, critically.
And he won director and picture for that, I think. So he'd already like, yes, now he's a serious filmmaker. And I feel like Saving Private Ryan was almost the culmination of that, once it like almost on a whole other level. I remember when that came out, people were freaking out about it. And Artificial Intelligence, I'm pretty sure, was the movie that followed that. And it was such a divisive film. I don't know if do you remember people talking about it? Do you remember conversations around it when it was released? Or
I do.
What do you recall?
Well, okay, so this is 2001, so we would have been in early high school. I think you would have been a freshman. I think I was a sophomore, or going into sophomore year, maybe. There we go.
Brought it all together, people. You didn't see that coming.
But, I mean, I was a massive Spielberg fan already. So I wanted to see the movie, and then I remember hearing that also he wrote this movie, which is kind of like... It's so funny because we have these conversations around Spielberg as like an auteur director, and ordinarily when we sort of talk about that kind of filmmaker, we are talking about like a writer director. And so the fact that Spielberg joins that sort of fraternity as being an auteur, even though he really doesn't write his movies, I think is fascinating, and it speaks a lot to like his style and the way that he selects material. But he did write this movie. Which is just like, I remember just, he basically hadn't written anything, I don't think, since like Duel, or, I mean, did he
Close
write
Encounters.
Close Encounters, yeah. But yeah, not since the 80s. So I just was curious as to like what he was going to do with this movie. And then I do not know how or why I missed it. because I saw Minority Report, which came out right after this. And so I don't know. It just somehow fell through the gaps. I'm sure every person on your podcast does this.
It happens all. I mean, that's Missing Frames exists to save these people from this horrible life they're living.
Thank goodness.
But that's kind of, I mean, Spielberg, he's probably my favorite filmmaker. And I feel like there's this kind of, I don't know, there's this snobbery in the film community.
Definitely.
When it comes to Spielberg. And we both went to film school, so I'm sure you have participated in numerous debates regarding like, oh, Spielberg versus Scorsese, like who's better? It's like a constant thing. And I feel like people are so condescending about Spielberg. And what's interesting about AI specifically is it's almost like people used it as an excuse to fling all, like, here's all the things we don't like about Spielberg, specifically because this was originally going to be a Stanley Kubrick movie.
Right.
And he had got the rights. Kubrick had got the rights to the short story that this is based on. It was Brian Aldiss, I think is how you pronounce his name. Super Toys Last All Summer Long, a 1969 short story. Kubrick got the rights to that, and for the longest time, it was just in development hell, and they couldn't get it made.
Yeah.
Kubrick, I think in the mid-'80s, brought Spielberg to look at like some production art and kind of showed him the script, and he basically said, I think you should direct it. And Spielberg was kind of shocked. He was like, excuse me, Mr. Kubrick, you want someone else to direct your movie? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But that was a conversation that went on and on and on. And Kubrick eventually, he like went on to other projects, Spielberg too, and Eyes Wide Shut ended up taking up, obviously, until Kubrick passed away. And it was a constant debate because Kubrick was always like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't think there's a child actor who could actually pull this role off.
Right.
You know, Haley Joel Osment ended up being the robot in the movie, but at the time he was like, I don't think special effects can do this. I don't think an actor can do this. And that's what held Kubrick back. And then eventually he kind of said, you know what, this is actually, Steven, this is more a movie you would make anyway. And I'd really like you to do it.
Well, of course, Spielberg is so wonderful at working with children. Like, he has such a good history of really respecting children and being able to draw amazing performances out of them. And so I feel like that had to have been an influential factor there.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because bringing it back to the snobbery, there is this debate surrounding the movie, and we'll talk about it afterwards when you've actually seen it and we can relate the specific subject matter to it. But there's a lot of stuff where people talk about, oh, if Kubrick had directed this movie, it would have been so much better, and this would have been different, and it wouldn't have been as saccharine, and da-da-da. And it's interesting because a lot of the elements that are in this movie were taken from Kubrick's work.
Sure.
And Kubrick recognized that it was a little bit more in tune with Spielberg's sensibilities than his own.
Right.
I don't know. How do you feel about the whole Spielberg thing? Like people just knocking on him.
Well, the thing is to knock on somebody like Spielberg or to hate somebody like Spielberg is simply ignorant. Like, you don't have to necessarily love him, but he changed what movies are. And so it's like people who say they hate the Beatles. It's like, okay, great. Like, you don't have to listen to it in your spare time or enjoy it, but you can't overstate the influence that this person has had on culture and like on, the form itself. And so like you don't have to love AI, and I'm not sure that I will necessarily. And look, we've all seen War Horse. It's a problem, but
I actually have not seen War Horse. I own it and I've never seen it.
Oh my God.
But I hear it's about a war and a horse.
Oh,
and those
boy.
are two. How can that go wrong?
Right. Yeah. So like, and when you look at, it's interesting. I would sort of consider, so he did this one. He did Minority Report basically right after this. And I love Minority Report.
Yeah, Minority Report's great.
And I'm expecting this movie actually to be sort of in conversation with Minority Report a little bit.
Absolutely.
At least visually. I mean, certainly visually. I'm sure that it will be. But probably thematically as well.
Definitely. And again, I don't want to spoil it because this is the pre-show and you haven't seen it. But there is... I always think of those two movies together because they came out so close together, but also because they're futuristic sci-fi, dealing not necessarily with the same thematic stuff, but they feel similar.
Okay.
And
is AI also completely blue or? No?
How
blue is it?
I really don't remember. I'm so excited to watch it again because it has been so long. But it was, what's his name? Kaminsky? He did the cinematography, so it is very stylized, and all those gray and blue palettes, I believe, are on full display here.
And then right after Minority Report, he did one more. Spielberg did one more that was sort of like, Catch Me If You Can, which I love Catch Me If You Can. And so a lot of people consider those to sort of be his last great films.
That's what it feels like. And it's funny because AI is, even today, it's still hotly debated, but I feel like its reputation is kind of grown and people have come to love it. And I've always had a very soft spot in my heart for AI. I was 14 or 15 when I saw it, and the movie so deeply resonated with me, and so it disturbed me so much. It was like this weird mood. It would put me in a weird mood that I couldn't escape until like the following day.
Well, the funny part is I am familiar with the score, because I have like a compilation, like CD compilation of a bunch of Williams and Spielberg like scores.
Right.
And so I could probably like hum part of the score for you, even though I definitely have not seen this movie. But the score is haunting. The score is very operatic. Let's
spend the next few minutes of this podcast just having you perform renditions of the songs. But I'm seriously, like, I'm very excited to watch it because this is a movie that it continues to be hotly debated amongst Spielberg fans, amongst film fans, and amongst Kubrick fans, who are convinced that Spielberg ruined the original intent. But
Kubrick fans as a group are a little overwhelming. I mean,
it's true. I'm a Kubrick fan, and I speak from experience.
I love Kubrick. I just like I don't know
that. But I think what is so interesting about this movie, especially in Spielberg's filmography, is just how weird it is. It is so out there that to me the argument of like, oh, what Kubrick would have brought to the table, AI is super disturbing and weird. I mean, not to misjudge or to understate what Kubrick could have brought to the table, but I feel like it's unfair to not see what's on display and to try to dismiss it as like, oh, it could have been so much better. Because frankly, it feels like an outlier in Spielberg's filmography, and it's just super weird. Like I'm very excited for you.
Nice.
To see it.
I'm excited to see it too. And like, you know what? I feel like film people, maybe more than any other group, love to play what if games. We love to say like, oh, this role was originally going to go to this person. What if this person had played that role? We love to get into stuff like that where we're just like, this person would have done this and this person would have done that. Maybe this person could have saved this movie, which otherwise sucks or whatever. But you simply can't do that because it just isn't the world that we live in. Like, movies get made the way that they get made, and quite frankly, making any movie ever feels like a miracle. It's so hard to make movies. It's so hard to get them made. I mean, it's easier if you happen to be Steven Spielberg, but even so, there are so many factors that end up contributing to how a movie gets made, and then of course how it is received in the time and place in which it is released. And so like we see this constantly where a movie that got panned at the time is now universally beloved, or some of our best picture winners, say at the Oscars, are now universally sort of hated.
Right.
And so like it's you can yell all you want to about that kind of stuff, but it doesn't change. Like, it goes how it goes. And it's sort of like just making a little paper boat or something and just like pushing it out into a river. And it's sort of the best that you can do. And where it goes from there, there's nothing you can control about it.
Right. No, that's a very good point. I'm excited. I'm excited for you. I have no idea what you're going to think about this movie. But
me neither. Although I am looking forward to finally hearing the score in context. So.
Perfect. And then we'll do a full performance when we return after our wonderful commercial break. So we will go watch it, and then we'll discuss.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
Now available to own on video cassette.
Welcome back, everyone. We've watched AI, Artificial Intelligence, me for the first time in a long time, Tricia for the first time ever. Tricia, how do you feel about AI? We were messaging back and forth.
Just a little bit. What am I going to say here? Just holy profanity, Batman. I cannot. You told me this movie, I think the word you used to describe it in the first half of this was weird. And that is dead on. This movie is so insane. I was not ready. I did not have any sort of notion as to what I was getting into. It starts off because it just moves through these phases where you're like, okay, I understand what this movie is. And then it turns itself on its head and you're like, I don't know what this movie is anymore. And then it does that again. And then it does that again.
It does that constantly. And
I
realized
think 4 times or.
Yeah. When I was watching it this time, I realized the last time I saw this movie, I don't think I'd seen much Kubrick. So now this time around, as a huge Kubrick fan, I was watching it from the mindset of knowing who he is. And that made it even weirder because there is such a mishmash and clashing of tones in a way that it's like, I would say if I were being completely like, all right, let me get my critic hat on, I would say this is a good, borderline, very good movie with some significant flaws in it. Personally, I kind of love this movie because of those flaws. I almost feel like it's not the same movie if it had just been a Spielberg movie or a Kubrick movie. To me, the weirdness of it and the clashing of tones is like, yeah, I'll knock it a point or two, but it's more fascinating as a result.
Well, I mean, fascinating is a really good word for it. Like, I don't know if I necessarily agree with you that it's a very good movie. I would say it's a movie that
it's a movie.
It's challenging and it's visually stunning. I mean, I could not have anticipated some of the imagery that we have in here, and just the way that it's shot is, I mean, we can talk about that even more because we were talking about in the first half about what we were expecting in terms of like, Minority Report and stylistically in Spielberg, because all of that I think is really present. He was clearly in this sort of like phase. I think I was reading somewhere where someone said like Kubrick is really interested in how the future looks, but not really interested in how the future actually is. And I really see that in this movie. Like, there's a lot of really fascinating images, but like a lot of them, the way that the logic of the world sort of works, I don't know if it actually does.
Yeah, it's very grounded. The whole thing. It's funny. I sent you the trailer because I was like, I have to check out the trailer because I had a memory of it being. Because I was trying to figure out, I'm like, this movie really didn't do great when it came out. The critical reception was kind of lukewarm, and the box office wasn't great either. It did really great internationally, but not domestically. As I was watching it, I was like, well, no wonder it didn't do great. It's advertised and marketed, and everyone, you have to look up this trailer because the movie looks like a fun, a fun adventure movie. Like, we're going to find our place in the universe, but it's not. It's not an adventure. It's not action. Spielberg kind of has moments where I could see he in the studio sitting down and saying, oh, we need an action sequence here. But like, it's a very contemplative, very meditative, slowly paced and methodical kind of examination of what it means to be human.
I would say. It's a fairy tale. And I was reading something too, and they were like, Kubrick he never even called this movie AI or anything like that, or even by the name of the short story, which is Super Toys Last All Summer Long. He always just called it Pinocchio when he was referring to it, which to me is like, okay, that's a kind of a cool idea. It's like this futuristic Pinocchio, but at the same time, I don't think I liked it as much as you did. I'm not sure how well it actually like works. Yeah. Because here's the thing. You just said this. You said it's a contemplation of what it means to be human, but I disagree because I think a lot of AI movies, or movies that sort of grapple with AI, like thinking about iRobot or like Bicentennial Man, which came out around the same time, or like what are some other movies?
Both
more
movies
recently,
have Robin Williams.
Oh, it's so true.
They're basically
more recently,
the same
something
movie.
like Ex Machina, right?
Yeah.
So that is like sort of blurring those lines between what an AI is and then like what a human is. I mean, part of the whole like conceit of those movies is that these robots are acting virtually indistinguishable from human beings in most important ways. But the AI, the mecha in this movie do not act like people in any way. Like, especially when they first bring Haley Joel Osment home. I'm sorry, his name is David.
But his real name.
I do want to talk about his performance, but
Yes.
When they first bring David home, he acts like a Roomba. I don't know.
Yeah, he just rolls around, sweeps up the floor. He's great. But it's true. You're right.
Yeah, he does not act like a person in any way.
Until he imprints. And then all of a sudden
Sure.
he's doing what he's programmed to do. And I guess his journey to become human, and that the dividing line between, like, I guess when I say, like, what does it mean to be human? Because his whole journey is to become human. And it gets to the point
Right.
where it's like, well, what's human? He is exhibiting love and fear and all these very human things.
See?
But to your point, it is also something he's programmed to do. He's never really, like, everything he does is dictated by the fact that he was programmed to feel certain things.
Right. So William Hurt's monologue, and I love William Hurt, and I think they don't give him enough to do here, but I think he's great in this part. But like his monologue at the beginning of, like, we want it to imprint, and then when we find out the rules sort of like having this, child mecha in your house, this idea of, okay, well, he will be imprinted on you forever and ever, and there's nothing to do then at that point if you don't want him but to destroy him. In that sense, like, David's desire then is actually not human. And so by establishing that rule for him, I think you really rob him of a lot of his, like, agency and a lot of his emotionality that otherwise might be really compelling. And obviously, like, I mean, God bless Jude Law. It's just like, God bless him so much. The role he's in this movie is just so bonkers.
It is, and I really love him. Gigolo Joe, what do you know? He also has the weirdest. Jude Law is the reason it works so well, because I was watching it and thinking of it in terms of the structure of the movie, which I would love to talk about in detail.
Yeah.
He comes in about 45 minutes into the movie, and is really, someone pointed this out, but that whole act is basically defined by Gigolo Joe's being a part of it. The second act is when he's involved, and he enters at the second act and leaves at the end of the second act. So he is the second act of the movie, and has,
which is
almost
too long, I think.
Yeah, well, it's very long. Yeah. And he just is there, and it's so out of touch. His goal in the movie is, I will find the blue fairy so I can sleep with her, because that's my job.
Right.
I will help you.
Yeah.
So it's like, on paper, I just see it as like, what? Why would I care at all? Like, this is so twisted. But Jude Law is so, like, endearing in the performance that
It's true.
I somehow really like him a lot.
I mean, they don't. Here's the thing. If you have a character who is programmed, or like a robot in this case, that is programmed to do something, programmed to want something, be that singular of purpose, then when that character is single-mindedly pursuing that goal until they achieve it, that is simply not a character arc, though. Like, I enjoy watching Jude Law's performance. I think that, like, the idea of this very like sexualized, sensual sort of world that he inhabits is a dark but pretty compelling vision of the future. And it's a really fascinating juxtaposition to put a very innocent child's, robot into that world. I think all of that's, like, really cool. It actually really, really reminds me of Disney's Pinocchio, because it's clearly supposed to. Like, he has this, like, Jiminy Cricket teddy bear, right?
Yeah.
And that's sort of like his little buddy that's acting as his
Yeah.
conscience. Yeah. I mean, it truly. And then Jude Law really reminds me of that, like, tricky fox character, that, like, is escorting him around through this world. And then they end up at, oh my God. I mean, they end up in a show, which is so similar to what happens to Pinocchio. No, they're like, he has no strings, blah, blah, blah. He ends up in a show, and then when they escape from the show, he gets taken into this like hedonistic world where
Right, and
then
he
the
gets
boys
swallowed. He's swallowed just
into
like
the
whale.
belly of a whale. Oh my
Yep.
God. I mean, it's such a like one-to-one allegory in a lot of ways of Pinocchio that I think it's like, again, a really cool idea, but I'm not sure what his arc is. I mean, David doesn't change.
For sure. I mean, if I were to, the problem with the arc is I think Kubrick and Spielberg, I mean, he said in numerous interviews that a lot of the stuff that he got blamed for, the kind of sentimental sweet ending,
Right.
the teddy bear, like all the sweet stuff, he insists a lot of this stuff was Kubrick. And that Kubrick, the reason Kubrick handed it off to him is because he was like, this, I don't think this is right for me. I don't think this is me. And of course it fits Spielberg's sentiment. Like it fits his visual style. It fits his thematic style.
Absolutely.
But the thing is, there is a constant clashing that prevents the movie from really, like, in this case, if we're talking about David, the clash to me is the idea of the movie is that this child, this robot, is conditioned by everything around him and by everybody around him to think that he's different. And at the end, the tragedy is that he realizes he's not different. He's been programmed. Nothing he does is independent in any way. He realized the horror of it, and why I think there is an element of sentience to him is the fact that at the end, he realizes it. He realizes, like, he's like, oh, you've been programmed to do this. And they're like, we're manufacturing hundreds and thousands of Davids, and you are as great and amazing as we could make you. And he commits suicide. I feel like if it was a Kubrick movie, that's where the movie would have ended. He jumps off the building, and that's the end. It's depressing. And at every turn, Spielberg's afraid. I don't know if I want to say afraid, but he fears committing to that. Because the movie then ends with his mother cradling him and saying, I've always loved you. You're special. The alien, or not the aliens, the super artificial intelligence. They're like, you're so special to us.
Which, by the way, definitely fell into the trap of thinking they were aliens. It is incredibly confusing. And the fact that a lot of people at the time were just like, and then there's aliens?
Yes.
I think is a super valid reading of the movie for reasons that we could talk about if we want to, but like, oh boy.
I think the confusion around his arc is basically the fact that there's confusion in general between the two.
Yes.
Like Spielberg wanting to go there, but then like, but I want people to feel good when they leave this movie. I don't really feel good when I leave this movie.
I definitely don't.
Which is why I thought it was weird that people were like, oh, Spielberg made it so sweet. I'm like, this movie doesn't have a sweet ending. I feel really disturbed and upset when I finish this movie.
I mean, absolutely. And the thing is, like, so, you know, as much as I'm here to complain about it, which I don't want to do.
That's why I brought you here. No. Keep complaining. Let's do it.
Like, I'm not a negative person. And I'll say this, like,
but I hate everything.
I hate everything. No, I truly love movies, and even my worst day in a movie is still a great day. You know, I watch probably 3 to 4 new movies a week that I've never seen before. I take in a lot of territory, and it's really hard to turn me off to something. And usually when I have a critical response, it's because I'm really engaged, and really frustrated. But But again, like, that's saying something good about the movie overall.
It is, but it's I mean, as someone who really enjoys it and considers it one of my favorite movies, it's a frustrating movie.
It's a frustrating movie.
It is completely, like, it is flawed in so many ways. To me, the flaws kind of fascinate me, which is why I love it so much. But, like...
Sure. I mean, I just want to point out something really fast, which is that Brendan Gleeson's character is named Lord Johnson Johnson. And must we, like... Oh, my God. I love Brendan Gleeson. It's just like, what? It's at every turn. I mean, I feel like 80% of my experience watching this movie was just me wandering around my house going like, what is happening?
That's, I think, how I remember when I was... This movie is so like outside of Spielberg too. It doesn't really feel, there's Spielberg stuff here, but it doesn't feel like a Spielberg movie, which again is super fascinating to me. And he's admitted as much that he kind of was trying to do an homage to Kubrick because he just passed away and all that stuff.
And to what you were saying earlier, I actually believe Spielberg that a lot of the sentimentality was already there, mostly because Ian Watson, who wrote The Treatment, has said that very explicitly.
Right.
You know, Ian Watson wrote the treatment for Kubrick, and Kubrick pretty much signed off on it. And according to everybody, Spielberg adhered very closely to that. And the teddy bear, people are critical of that. Well, that really is the main element that is retained from the short story. So they have to have the teddy bear. Like, I was, thinking about that. It's like, well, you can't get rid of the super toy that is, the character. There's nothing you can do about any of that. And I do think that, like, you do find it I did find it so compelling, because you wonder about what you were saying about David's desire and this feeling that he's special, thus feeling that he is alone essentially, and he just wants to be loved by this one particular person. And it seems so simple, and it's such a clear and relatable desire that we as the audience are just like, I mean, we all want to be loved by our mothers. I mean, our family, that's really, really simple and clear, and like almost this primal desire. And telling a story about that makes a lot of sense and is a beautiful idea. But I don't know, to argue that then gaining that love is what makes us real is thematically muddy.
It is. And again,
best.
it all comes back to the fact that I think Kubrick was probably a little more willing to go there and say everyone thinks they're special, but really we're all kind of the same. Whereas Spielberg,
that image of just like a dozen of those androids, these lined up or hanging there along the walls. Yeah. It's just horrifying.
It is.
It's
and then he goes
very
in,
Kubrickian.
And he looks in the like the face and the eye. It's so creepy and so unlike anything else Spielberg did.
Absolutely.
But it's that seems to be in direct conflict with Spielberg's like just innate need to make people feel special. And I'm like, I could fall on either side of that argument. Yeah, we're all the same, but yeah, we're all unique in our own like different ways that are super crazy. Mm-hmm. But like it's like a Rorschach test almost, where it's like, how do you feel? Do you go into this movie feeling like that it means this? It is so bizarre. But I really want to I want to break down as you were walking or just walking around your house, but also walking through the movie, because the structure. I want to talk about the structure of the film. Okay, it is the most not the most insane structure. It's not like a Nolan movie where it's bouncing back and forth in time. Yeah. But in terms of, like you said, it's too long. It's like 2.5 hours long, and you feel it. And each act is distinctively its own thing. The first 40 minutes of the movie, it's basically like this
family drama, which is I find really compelling. Like I watching that, I was like, okay, why does everybody hate this movie? It's kind of awesome.
Yes.
And really heavily, I was going to say really heavily, I thought influenced by The Sixth Sense, which I think you could argue that The Sixth Sense is heavily influenced by Spielberg and Kubrick anyway, because M. Night Shyamalan was such a much younger filmmaker. But there's that shot in the beginning of the movie where, so similar to The Sixth Sense, where she leaves him in the kitchen and she walks into the laundry room, and when she comes back, he's done something totally creepy. Yep. And the camera doesn't cut. So there's that scene is in there. And I just remember thinking like, oh, you've got Haley Joel Osment in there. It's hard not to do that comparison.
Oh, for sure. And that's why he's in the movie. He just got nominated for Sixth Sense. So, know, Spielberg, it was so clear that he said, I watched an interview where he basically said Haley Joel Osment was his first and last choice for the part.
See, I don't know, because I read other things saying that he screen tested Joseph Mazzello for it.
I heard Kubrick did early on, like when he was first.
I love Joseph Mazzello.
He's great. He's wonderful. And he's great in Jurassic Park and in many, many other things too.
And in Bohemian Rhapsody.
Is he? Oh, I still haven't seen that. Well, then I've got, if he's in Queen, then I've got, it's a whole other level.
I mean, he is, I will go out on a limb here, and this is, I know we not on topic at all, but I will go out on a limb here and say he is the best part of Bohemian Rhapsody. He plays John Deacon, the bass player, and it's amazing actually how much he looks like the real John Deacon, which I guarantee is a big part of the reason why they cast him. But I just wanted to hug him the entire movie. He just sits there and is pulling all these, like, everyone is acting totally insane around him, and he's just sitting there pulling faces like, what the heck is happening for most of the movie.
Yeah. I just want to point out, I'm always up to go off topic when it comes to Joseph Mazzello. It's okay.
Same.
But it's true. He was originally, I think Kubrick saw him based on Jurassic Park, because Kubrick was convinced effects hadn't stepped up to his level to make this movie work.
Yeah.
But I think the CG effects in Jurassic Park was like, okay, maybe this could work. And also maybe that kid could be David. I don't know. So I think that's when he was screen tested. And then.
Yeah. And of course he would have been too old by the time the movie actually got made. So,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree. And Haley Joel Osment's performance is astonishing. He does such a tremendous job with such an insanely difficult role. And I read somewhere that it was his idea that David should never blink on camera.
Oh my God.
And
how creepy.
It's so good.
I watched this movie when I was younger, and it just never occurred to me. But you watch it when you get older, and you see you've seen a lot of movies, and you know how badly movies with child protagonists can be when the performance is not up to snuff. So to watch this movie that is so mature and have this incredibly layered, disturbing, but empathetic performance, like the moment when he's like begging his mom not to leave him is
it's
so
awful.
insane and bad. Like how I mean, it's incredible. And the movie, obviously he just got nominated for Sixth Sense, so I think the Academy was like, all right, we've done our part. But like I just don't get it. Sometimes I don't, awards don't mean everything, but just seeing how little praise this movie got in terms of that feels so weird to me.
Everything that I read universally praised the performances pretty much. I mean, you know, even Robin Williams' like tiny little turn as that, you know, crazy computer character, I think is great. Like he does, I mean, obviously he's one of our best and of all time, but I just think that everyone in this movie is wonderful. To be frank, I can't imagine. I mean, it simply doesn't work without the exact cast that you have here. I think there's an argument to be made that it doesn't work anyway. But but I will say I was brought to tears. I was crying during that last part of the movie where you just, again, just the purity of who David is and what he wants is just his incredible amounts of hope. You know, as he's sitting there and praying to the blue fairy over and over and over again for 2,000 years.
It's so, I think that really, I like, this is like a therapy session for me because it so affected me. I said this in the first part, but like I would like the rest of the day I was like in a fugue state. Like I would be so affected by this movie that I would have to sleep it off and kind of shake off the mood. And I'm older now and I've seen more weird stuff, so but it's still, I still feel that, I still tap into that emotion. And I think so much of it is this poor kid who has a miserable life, who it just doesn't get what he wants ever, really. He gets, I mean, his mother tells him he loves him.
Oliver Twist, like
like it's just never, the character never gets what he wants. Even at the end, he gets to be with his mom, but then she dies, and then he dies. So to me, it was always so disturbing.
Sorry, spoilers, everybody.
Yeah, spoilers. Everybody dies. But so the first act of the movie is very structured around his home life, around his family, around his relationship with his mom, around their son, because their real son has this incurable
I truthfully
disease.
did not expect the son to come back when like they're like, oh, he's awake now and he's fine. That was the first indication to me that this movie was not going to be what I was expecting.
Yeah. Sarah was sitting with me, kind of paying attention, and she was like, yeah, I kind of see where it's going. Like, obviously David's going to like go crazy and kill everybody, right? And I was like, I mean, but it's true. Like the beginning doesn't really project what's going on. It's very leisurely in its pacing, and you think like, I guess it's going to be centered around this like robot boy and his family. So how did you like it? That sounds like about what you were expecting.
No,
as well.
Exactly. It was so funny. I was talking to my partner midway through watching this movie, and I was like, listen, I truly don't know where this is going. I truly have no idea what is going to happen at the end of this movie. And after I saw the end of this movie, I felt a little better because I was like, literally no one could have predicted that, actually. So
that's what I've forgotten about. I forgot how long it really feels and how long the acts play out. Because this first act goes through the whole story. It really, I don't know. I mean, what would you say is the inciting incident? Is it when he comes to their like they're not the main character, so he technically the inciting incident is when she leaves him, right? Like, or when she,
So,
like how does the structure work?
I think the true inciting incident is when she imprints on him. Because
Okay.
he really isn't a character per se up until that point. Like I said, he really
True.
is just like a robot vacuum, kind of. Or he's no different than Teddy, really. So like that imprinting, I think, distinguishes him as a character with some agency and independence. And then I think the end of the first act is when she, of course, leaves him in the jungle of New Jersey, question mark, in a swamp.
Sure.
Sure.
It's the future.
I mean, sure, why not? If the oceans have risen that far, New Jersey is now a jungle. Let's go with it. So yeah, I think that's sort of the clear mark at the end of the first act. But that is 45 minutes in. It's a long first act. The second act, I think, really meanders in a way that probably doesn't work.
Oh yeah,
but
especially
is
the flesh
fascinating.
fair stuff.
Oh yeah, it goes on so long.
It is, and I was watching it this time and thinking to the part where the Tron guys, basically characters from Tron, get on a motorcycle and chase all the robots around. I just remember thinking, this is so clearly like we need to have like something for the trailers where everyone's running.
Some kind of action.
Exactly. That
Something
it felt,
has to happen.
Yeah, and it's effective in a way because the movie has been so dreamlike and subtle almost. Not completely subtle, but it's been very like dreamy.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and so the second act, they open with Joe, which is great, and that kind of sets you in this whole new world. But then they have this very like extended chase sequence that leads into this crazy, like we're just dumping acid on robots and cutting them in half, and what is going on?
Yeah,
and it's just that I felt like I was like, God, this movie is all over the place, which is something I hadn't noticed the first time I saw it.
I mean, and that's what you were talking about earlier with that tonal switch that I think is a little bit hard to process. Like you're like, oh, this is this like family drama, which does get dark. I mean, it is dark, absolutely. That scene where he creeps into the bedroom with scissors, it's just, which is so Minority Report, and should be said. Like the opening sequence of Minority Report is about like a murder that involves a pair of scissors in like a bedroom, and it's interesting. But it is truly like suspenseful and very dark. That happens. So it's not so much of like the darkness that's the tonal switch. It's more just like us trying to find our footing in a world that is suddenly, I'm gonna go with garish and outrageous, where it truly was quite restrained before.
That is the movie that they sold audiences, is the flesh fair and that middle portion of the movie. And the rest of the movie kind of gets left by the wayside. But you're totally right. And it's very... It works in terms of giving the movie a jolt, but God, I forgot how long it takes to get to that point. And I do love this. The stuff that sticks out a lot to me is the stuff in the beginning with him, kind of the sibling rivalry and the weirdness of it. And I really loved the pool scene where he suddenly goes and his defensive programming comes in, which is a really brilliant way story-wise to get him out of there, to make it so his mom has to get him out.
Exactly.
But it's very strange. And I think the reason I am okay with the second act is because of Jude Law. That's really it.
I mean, I will basically watch him do anything. And this part is so insane that it kind of works, where you're just like, all right, what is this character going to do and say now? I can't tell. I don't know. And of course, he is a really good guide for David, because otherwise David would be just like absolutely hopeless. He's way too innocent. And so having somebody like Jude Law, but again, if you have a character that's a robot and it's only acting like a robot, there's a point at which you're just like, well, this is a movie not about people. It's a movie about robots.
Yeah.
And so like my ability to empathize becomes a little bit limited, because again, they're just doing what they're programmed to do.
Right. And Blade Runner kind of covers the same. I mean, it's very, the visual, the second part of the movie is very visually inspired by Blade Runner. There's a lot of rain, there's a lot of neon, there's a lot of like leather, like just like crazy outfits. But the idea of Blade Runner is the idea of like, at what point where do you draw the line? Like what makes you more human than human is the motto of their of Terrell Corporation. And
Exactly.
this movie is like dancing around that. And it comes up random. Like, I remember thinking when Jude Law kind of corners him and says, "The humans hate us," I was like, yeah, this movie is kind of dancing around that whole, we've seen the flesh fair, but it never, the journey of David is so at odds with that movie. Like, it's
Right.
like the
Absolutely.
two are competing for the front, like the center stage.
Right. And again, thematically, I don't really know what conclusion this movie draws. The story of Pinocchio is really the story of Geppetto in a lot of ways. He does not want Pinocchio to run away, and so he's looking for him. And when they end up in the belly of the whale, quite literally, they are there together, and they're like, Geppetto's changing is what ends up causes Pinocchio's change. And without like the mom character, like what if in the second act of this movie there's a counterpoint where Jude Law is helping him find the blue fairy, but at the same time the mom has decided, okay, I can't believe I left him out there. She starts to feel regret, and so she starts looking for him, and she goes to William Hurt, and then they're like, William Hurt is looking for him, and instead of like actively looking for him, instead of this weird thing where they're like, we set a trap for you, sort of,
Right.
or like, but they're actively trying to find him, and it is because I think a fascinating question that this movie does sort of pose is, what is the moral responsibility of a human toward a machine?
Yes.
What is our moral responsibility here? Or, in the same way that we anthropomorphize all kinds of things, our cars and our computers and different things like that. We do. And I think that that's a fascinating question, but without the presence of human characters throughout most of this movie, I don't think it ends up grappling with that question in a way that it could, or that I maybe wish it did.
That idea, it feels more, that concept of the mother going out and looking for him almost feels more like a standard Spielberg movie to me.
Sure, yeah,
which is kind of
absolutely.
why I'm glad he didn't go in that direction. For some reason, the coldness and the weirdness of it, I don't.
You dig
I almost
it.
don't want
You
the
dig
human
it so
connection.
much.
Yeah, I know. Well, I do. I don't. It's weird, and people who have listened to other episodes of this podcast can catch me in another of contradictions where I say I didn't like this because the characters weren't strong enough. Because I'm such a character person. A movie can be like mediocre, but if it has great characters, that's all I really care
See,
about.
I'm a theme person.
Yeah, so that makes sense
that's-
because
yep.
but it's this movie, the characters are not necessarily, it's great performances, not necessarily great characters.
Yeah.
But I think the cold weirdness of it and the fact that it's a Spielberg movie where every ounce of him clearly is screaming to give an emotional thread to the audience,
Sure.
he resists the urge to do that. I kind of love that and the weirdness of it.
Listen, I'm here for weird choices. And I also am really here for another thing that I can't get over about movies is when I can get a real look into the mind of a filmmaker with a movie. And you do get the sense that this is a deeply personal work for Spielberg. We know, I mean, I have written, I've done a lot of research, and I have written about Spielberg at different times. So I know a decent amount about his home life or anything that he's been willing to talk about his home life. But we know from watching his filmography how affected he was by his early years and as a child of divorce. And we see things like that. We see that in Close Encounters. We see that in E.T. He was a lonely kid.
Yeah.
And has never really gotten past being a lonely kid in a lot of ways, or has never gotten over the feeling that we might all be a lonely kid.
Right.
I feel like his work really addresses that. And even as obviously an adult filmmaker, he really grapples with like parenting and what does that look like? If being a child is so lonely, how can you be a parent that makes a child less lonely?
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time protect a child and all this stuff. So we see this in Jaws. And we see, of course, this in Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Dr. Alan Grant, like his whole arc is like taking care of a kid.
Right.
So it's like, I love the idea that the plot of Jurassic Park is Dr. Grant learns to like kids.
Yes,
Because it kind
that's
of is. Yeah.
It is. And that I think you laid that out in your lessons from a screenplay video.
Yeah.
But it's true. That's the movie.
Yeah.
He learns to want to be a dad, basically.
Yeah, even though they never actually, in subsequent movies, give him any children. So what were we doing?
Oops,
Anyway,
sorry.
whoops. But also, I mean, Jurassic Park 2 does grapple with that, not with Grant, but obviously with Malcolm. Anyway, so I'm just saying, like, we do see these themes from Spielberg again and again, and this feels very personal in a way that, I mean, is fascinating, and at
Disturbing?
the same time, I was gonna say disturbing. I was gonna say tragic.
Yeah.
Like, it feels really tragic.
I think
the
a lot
moment of connection that with his mother that leads him to be real is also the one that can't last.
Yes. I think that really it was one of the, I think it was I'm trying to analyze myself and see like why this movie affected me so deeply. And I think that's part of it is the idea. This was a really early example, I think, of a movie I saw where it was presenting ultimately the thing you are trying to achieve is fleeting. Like it will not last.
Yeah.
Like everyone's gonna die. It's a lot of real. This is a PG-13 like summer movie, a blockbuster directed by Steven Spielberg.
I love that they tried to do that. Like,
I know, and it's like that's what the movie's really about. Is I guess like trying. Well, it's about 50,000 things, and can't. That's the problem. But like one of the prevalent things is the idea of that, like this relationship that could never work, that was never meant to work, and ultimately doesn't last. That I think that's what really bothered me is like, oh, this is so sad.
Well, when we have a movie like this that has a child star, I feel like the natural sort of themes that are already embedded in it, you know, in addition to some of the sort of like more sci-fi themes that we have already touched on, one of the biggest themes that's embedded in it is like a theme of disillusionment and like a coming of age, because that's what a coming of age story is. It's about maturity. So, you know, it's the move from like a simplistic view of the world to a complex view of the world, which usually requires some element of disillusionment. And so, but by virtue of being a robot child, he effectively cannot be disillusioned.
Yeah.
And he cannot move to a more complex view of the world. And so again, and part of this is just me, I go into this like expecting some of these themes that we traditionally get from stories like this, and they are simply not there. And I don't, like I said, I think it's fascinating the fact that we're like still hashing all of this out and talking about it is incredible. I mean, it's incredible.
Well, I think the argument, the argument I have against that is the fact that it's not that it isn't there, because his realization is that he's not special and that he has been built to do this. And that's his breaking point. But it happens at the end. I guess if you're looking at it structurally, it happens when it should, quote unquote, happen, because really you can do this whatever. The whole idea of structure to me is like everyone has proven you can do anything, but typically that's like the end of the second act. That's your character's lowest point, and that's where that happens. The problem is that everything that happens in, I guess, the third/fourth act is contradicts that.
Exactly.
And it's like he's not special, but then the advanced intelligence comes and tells him you are the most special thing ever. His mom comes back to life only to tell him like, yes, You're always special. Loved you. It's a very confusing message, and thematically it's conflicting. It's Kubrick versus Spielberg. That's why it's so
about
fascinating.
The theme. Yeah, exactly. Well, and the thing is, like, so he gets into that belly of the whale situation where he's facing the blue fairy and he starts praying to her. He finally finds her. He starts praying to her. And what you expect from that moment, or what I was expecting from that moment, is for that to lead to the disillusionment where he realizes, look, he's never gonna be real, and then like finds a new resolve to possibly be as real as he can be, or be special in his own way, or maybe that, like, you know, his connection with Gigolo Joe or whoever might yield some of that emotionality that we associate with being human, might be able to blur those lines and in a way make him real. But it doesn't lead to his disillusionment.
No.
He is not disillusioned. He prays for 2,000 years and he gets pulled out of the water and he wants the exact same thing he wanted before he prayed for 2,000 years.
Yes.
And the whole point is that of these like sort of parables is that we're supposed to come out of the belly of the whale changed. And
he doesn't.
He doesn't.
He's changed before he goes in, and then he's changed again. But it's like he falls in disillusion, and he comes out like, no, everything's okay. I found the blue fairy. Let's go back to that.
Right. Like, I don't know. But again, it is fascinating in that it messes with these sort of archetypes where, you see, and again, all of the imagery is just absolutely incredible. Like the moment where the blue fairy, who looks like the Madonna, when she shatters, you're just like, oh, that, after being unthawed from the ice or whatever. It's an incredibly visual moment. And again, I think like now he's disillusioned.
Yes.
Nope, he's not.
And then the aliens are, I keep calling them aliens because they look like aliens, and Spielberg loves aliens. Come on.
He loves them so much. They look like the characters from Close Encounters.
Right.
Like,
so
they look just like them.
I can forgive. I think I just assumed like, oh, they're an advanced whatever. Sure. But like then they basically just say to him, we'll give you whatever you want.
Right.
And it's really, I remember at first they talked to each other with subtitles, which I thought was goofy, but then they speak in English to him, which was like even goofier.
With British accents?
Yeah, it was British accents, exactly. So the movie, I'm like sitting there and I'm watching and I'm moved, but I'm also underneath it all.
It's goofy.
It's goofy. The whole thing is goofy and it's ridiculous. And I can just sense Spielberg trying to say, no, we're going to get through this. Don't worry. I know it's sad, but it's going to be okay. Because look, they love him. They want him to be happy. Don't you want to be happy? But it's like by the end of the movie, it's so like the movie's broken and it breaks you. And it's like, there's no going back.
Yeah, totally.
I'm completely broken.
Well, and like, I just don't buy that. There's a couple of like plot things that I don't buy, and I don't like to be a nitpicky plot person, but like I don't buy that this higher intelligence cares at all about humankind, and like why do they want to study them? That makes no sense to me. It's like a nice idea, I guess, where they're like, humans made art and blah de blah, and we want to find out, and I'm like, they don't care.
It's a little hard to believe that David is the only thing left to connect them to humanity. That was ridiculous. But
don't
like,
buy it.
It's a sweet.
I also don't buy like this whole, which this is an insane, like very, very sort of like red herring side plot, but that like Joe is being hunted by people because they think he killed somebody. Which is like, no, like that doesn't make any sense.
The only reason it exists is because they needed to get him with David and give him a reason to want to leave. That's it. Otherwise, it's like logically, it's like, huh? What?
Huh? No, because like that's a fascinating idea. Can a robot commit a crime? Make a whole movie about it. Oh, they did. It's called iRobot. Stars Will Smith. You can check it out.
With Will Smith, the best. Let's just make this episode about Will Smith from here on out.
Sure. I'm always here for it. But,
but yeah, and again, this movie is struggling constantly, and it's fascinating in that regard. But the things that don't work for me really are just, as much as I love Spielberg, his need to it has to be fun, and the audience has to feel like they got their money's worth. Like the Chris Rock robot, like he's like, oh no, don't put me in there. It was like, what is going on with this? And then I remember really feeling it when David climbs into the ship, and there's like this John Williams action music, like dun 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 dun, and it's like, wait a second, what movie am I watching? And I just see Spielberg saying, oh, you know what? Here we need to have like a sequence where it's just fun and exciting, and the audience can really like invest. But it feels like those crowd pleasing tendencies don't belong in this movie.
Well, and here's the thing. So like, I absolutely agree. This is not a popcorn movie. And so I think a lot of the dissonance that came from the critics was that they were fed one thing and they got another. And what you were saying at the top half of the show, which is that like time has been actually quite forgiving to this movie, I tend to agree with, in that like you can watch this movie now, like I just did for the first time, sort of looking back on it and take it sort of at its own for what it is. I hadn't seen the trailer up until you said it to me earlier this morning.
Right.
But it is just like a puzzle of marketing, and it came out at a time where probably people just like wanted another big Spielberg splashy action movie. And
because this is his first after I guess it was the first one since Jurassic Park. Really, that was like a sci-fi adventure quote unquote movie. So I think
well,
they were really
trying to think
pushing
about
for
like
that.
what he was making in the mid 90s and stuff like that. But I mean, if you go in expecting that, obviously you're going to be disappointed about this. Good thing though, he made Minority Report right after this.
Yes.
But I've heard people call this like, you know, Spielberg's Running Man trilogy that he made in the early 2000s, which is like you have Minority Report, you have Catch Me If You Can, and those are unquestionably this idea of like Running Man movies.
Right.
And I do not think this movie qualifies. I'm sorry. It's a nice
yeah, it has running in it. I guess that's
There's a
people are
little
like,
bit of
yeah,
running.
yeah, it
Yeah.
works. There's a scene where
some
Tron
running.
motorcycles chase after a kid. So
Right.
yes, but
No.
but it's the relationship between this and Minority Report, which in retrospect, I think it was a little much to say. I see how the two could be bunched together, but I think it's more cinematically and in
Visually,
terms of visually, and also Spielberg going into like a darker kind of blockbuster, because AI and
Absolutely.
Minority Report are very dark movies, more so
Yeah,
than what
Minority
he'd done before.
Minority Report is like John Anderton, that character is this profoundly broken character, and he's so lonely and guilt stricken the whole movie for losing his son, and he does not get any redemption of that. He does not get to save his son or find out what happened. He never finds out what happened to his son.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoilers for Minority Report also, everybody.
Spoilers for everyone.
It's spoilers for everything. Like he does not ever get to find out what happened to Shawn, and
Sean obviously made a really great podcast called Missing
Yeah.
Frame, so he turned out okay.
he pulled through. But yeah, it is just like that, and the same thing when you see like, Catch Me If You Can, which again, going back to personal movies for Spielberg, broken homes, parent-child relationships, and he never gets over it. He never ever gets over it, which is good. I think that wound is something we need to continually see movies about, and
it
possibly the
resonates.
reason. Yeah, of course, always has resonance. And possibly the reason no one likes his more recent movies, or not no one, but they're just, I don't.
I
No.
like them.
Which one do you like? The Post?
I actually
Don't say
really,
The
I
Post.
liked Lincoln. I liked The
Lincoln's
Post, and I liked Bridge of Spies a lot.
Well, I credit what I like about Bridge of Spies to the Coen brothers, but we like.
Bridge of Spies is a great movie that my dad and my grandpa love.
Yes, it is such a dad and grandpa movie.
Whatever the male equivalent of Hallmark is, that's what Bridge of Spies is. But I love it.
Seriously, it's like the naval captain of a thing, like anything a dad would like, just throw it in there. But possibly, like, I wonder if some of those movies aren't as resonant because they're not touching on this sort of like raw nerve that Spielberg has shown us again and again. They're not sort of addressing these like themes that we see him have something really profound to say about.
Yeah.
And I agree that this movie feels profound, whether or not like you come away from it feeling like you have experienced something deep, and that might be a little unclear as to what it is, but it does stay with you. And what you were saying at the top, I fully agree with. It's hard to shake.
It's hard to rank it too in Spielberg's filmography because it feels so.
Oh,
of
are
its
we supposed to
own.
do that?
I don't know. We can try. I frankly couldn't if I were to ask. My personal attachment to this movie definitely ranks it higher than I think it should be placed.
Sure.
But it's not his best movie, but it's I think unquestionably one of his most fascinating movies.
I was
and
going to say
especially, yeah, the history of it too. Just the fact that it's basically Spielberg and Kubrick. Like it's essentially a collaboration between the two of them, and it feels wholly Spielberg, but at the same time, it's not. That to me makes it absolutely a worthwhile addition to his filmography. The placement of it's being released in his overarching career is fascinating.
Yeah, I agree.
And I connect real strongly with the weirdness of it, and I think the performances are great. But I also recognize the significant flaws it has. But I mean, how do you feel like if you could place it amongst the rest of his movies, where would it rank in terms of like first tier, second tier?
I'm not gonna put it on. I'm not going to put it as a third tier movie. I mean, his movies that are down there are pretty down there, I think. Which, you know, as someone who like could not possibly be a bigger fan, like just I want to say all of this with all of the love in my heart for this filmmaker.
Well, Spielberg is a regular listener of the show, so I'm sure he appreciates that.
Steve, thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
So yeah, I absolutely would not put this down as a third tier. This has got to be a second tier for me. I mean, because like the first tier movies we're talking about are so insanely good. Like the first tier movies that you're talking about, we're talking about Jaws, we're talking about E.T., Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan. Like what?
Raiders.
Oh, I didn't even say Raiders. What am I doing? Like,
Who
there's
are
too,
you right
There's
now?
too many. That's the whole thing. Is that his first tier movies? He has so many triumphant additions to modern cinema that it would be impossible for a movie like this. I don't know, maybe even expertly executed without some of the problems we're discussing to join sort of those ranks just by virtue of what it is.
Yeah.
But I think it's a pretty solid second tier movie. I mean, what are some of the second, like pretty universally we can agree are like second tier Spielberg? I mean, like
second tier Spielberg is still like good, so it's hard to say. Let me look. I'm looking.
Like,
at
are we talking like Poltergeist here?
I mean, like, yeah,
sure.
if that count, and like Close Encounters is like first tier for me, but I know for some people it's like
for some,
second
well,
tier.
it's a little hard to watch. It like this movie, it's a little too long, and it's kind of like, all right. Yeah, but I really do like Close Encounters a lot.
I don't know. I guess second tier would be for me everything he's made since.
What, like The Terminal?
Yeah. Well, you know, yeah. I don't know. It's so hard, and this movie doesn't have an obvious place.
No.
In any of it, really.
It doesn't. I do think like its spiritual brother is. Well, what would you think? I was about to say Minority Report only because they were sort of made by the same version of Spielberg around the same time. So you could kind of put that there. But at the same time, like I said, you have like there's a lot of E.T. in here.
There's a lot of Close Encounters.
There's a lot of Close Encounters. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up just going back and looking at thematically what he's focused on, you do see a lot of that in AI. And again, this is one of 3 screenplays Spielberg is credited with.
Right.
It's Close Encounters, Poltergeist, and this. And he has sole screenwriting credit on this one, and I think Close Encounters. But like, that is fascinating to me.
I agree.
Again, it is such an interesting product to come from something like that, to say, yeah, this is one of 3 screenplays Spielberg wrote, and to watch AI thinking like, okay, interesting, and seeing the final result, it's that to me is just that's what makes it so worth people's time, even if they don't like it.
I'm going to put this out there. I mean, there's something about it that reminds me of Hook also, which is just like, I don't care. I know that makes no sense. But because Hook is obviously this rollicking adventure romp sort of thing. But it was just a fairy tale aspect of it.
Yeah.
And also, again, you know, what you have in Hook is sort of a reverse coming of age, which you have a man who is disillusioned already and has this very bleak sort of cynical outlook on the world, and he has to rediscover something simplistic. And so this idea, again, the motivations of David here are incredibly pure and childlike in a way that I think is kind of refreshing. And so, I don't know, there's something, again, fairy tale-ish about it that I think sort of echoes all of that. But anytime you're talking about a filmmaker like Spielberg, you're sort of holding all of these, like, you have your hands full of all of these movies at the same time. And you're just kind of like, all right, it's a lot of movies to hold. And you got like Always in there. And you're just like, okay, I'm doing my best over here. Like,
it's true. What would you? So this is totally your this is beyond the screenplay. This is your thing. But since you're doing that, since you're part of that team, let's do this. What lessons would you take from AI and apply to your writing or storytelling and that kind of stuff?
You know, as I said, I'm a big theme person, and I think that when theme is really executed at its highest level, it is a perfect marriage of form and theme. By saying form, I include genre. And so, like, if you are going to say something and you're making a genre movie, I think we really need to peer into that genre and mine it for the kind of themes that are inherently already in there. And so like when you talk about sci-fi, there are sort of these themes that are already embedded in there. Like I was talking about machines and our moral responsibility to machines and what you were saying about what does it mean to actually be human. Those are themes that are actually already embedded in there. But I do think that like you have to, if you're going to explore a theme, great. I think you also should suggest an answer to a question,
or
like,
just commit.
Just commit to one. I don't know, and so I think that's something that I sort of feel like I've said that to death. Maybe I haven't actually said it on Beyond the Screenplay yet, but I feel like that's something that I talk about a lot when I'm talking to young screenwriters. Is just like, well, what are you trying to say? Like, and what is the question about life or about what it is to be human that's already buried in this premise, that's already buried in this genre, and lean into that and really explore it, really plummet for what it can offer. I mean, I guess that's sort of a lesson of like what I wish this movie had done, but what it does do, towards that, I think is really, like we said over and over, fascinating. It's fascinating.
For sure. And I guess we'll say final ratings, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. We'll make our rating scale. Let's just do blue fairies. That feels right. Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 5 blue fairies, how many blue fairies would you give AI?
I give this a solid 3.5 blue fairies.
Okay. That's what I'd give it too, which is so funny really? Since it feels like we have such, I feel so like I've been praising it. I think if I have to really like sit back and say, yes, there are flaws in this movie, that's right. What I give it. But a lot of my love for it is because it resonates so strongly.
Sure.
And so much of what it's trying to do emotionally works. It's just the movie's kind of a mess.
Yeah, and like I said, it moved me to tears, and the performances are just outstanding. And I actually I wish that I had seen this movie. I actually saw Haley Joel Osment recently in my local grocery store.
You should just screamed at him, AI,
because I live in LA. I did not say anything to him because that is not what we do in grocery stores in Los Angeles.
No.
But I would have had a different view, I think, or I just would have, I don't know, looked at him maybe a little differently because I just respect his performance in this so much.
It's astonishing. It really is.
It feels mature and self-aware and super intelligent for someone as young as he was.
Would you say artificially intelligent?
Okay, get out of here.
That's the final. Oh, you know what I forgot to mention? This is we'll wrap it all up with a story, which is that this is one of the first gifts I got my wife when we started dating.
You
this
are
movie.
A sadist.
Why? I know. Well, she was trying to collect all these Spielberg, and I was like, well, we don't have AI, so I got her that. And you told me to say this because you wanted to make fun of me. I think this is a stroke of genius. I wrote her a little note in the Amazon shipment, and I said, my love for you is not artificial, but it sure is intelligent.
Ugh, it's the worst. It's just like 80% of my adult life is me trying to shame men for making bad puns.
Oh, but it's the best. The world needs more bad puns.
No,
this is what
it doesn't.
I think if we were to look at a problem with men in general, it's that there aren't enough bad puns.
You're right. That is the biggest problem I have when it comes to men.
That'll be the topic of our next episode. But Tricia, I want to thank you again. This has been such an absolute pleasure.
Oh, it has been my pleasure.
And if people want to find you out there on the interwebs, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So first of all, check out our YouTube channel, which is called Lessons from the Screenplay.
Yes.
We just released our 1 million subscriber celebration video,
Woo!
Which is about adaptation, and it's a very special one. So
it's
definitely
fantastic.
Check that out. And of course, our affiliated podcast, Beyond the Screenplay, if you want to hear me and some other super smart people, including some really cool screenwriters, talking more about these movies that we love so much. And you can tweet at me. I am at Tricia Jean A, TriciaAJean A at Twitter, obviously.
Yay. And I'm at YayShondorman on Twitter. I want to see some AI apologists come out of the woodwork
Bring
and
it. I
talk
love
to
it.
us. I want to
Yes,
hear this.
please.
I want to hear all the opinions about this movie.
Tell us why we're wrong.
Yeah.
We're not,
Tell
but you
us-
can try.
Tell us how wrong we were, and we will end you. But I want to hear some opinions. Do you like Spielberg's version? Do you think he screwed up whatever Kubrick had in mind, even though we clearly, I think we made it
Look,
about
we
as clear as
debunked that
possible
theory,
that
yeah.
he didn't. Yeah, and you can also check out thenerdparty.com. That's the network that Missing Frames is a part of. Tons of great stuff on there. You can follow the Nerd Party at Join Nerd Party on Twitter, like the Facebook page, The Nerd Party, all that fun stuff. Tricia, we'll have to do this again. We'll talk
I'd
about
love
all the
to.
Spielbergs, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope our audience has a wonderful day as well.
Bye, everyone.